Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. The talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me at benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcast because People of Distinction is a nationally and internationally syndicated show because of listeners like you. Our shows are available across all major podcast distributors as well as YouTube. And if you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. We appreciate the support. Continue to like and follow and sit back and strap in because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Brad Anderson. And we're going to be discussing his amazing novel, Unfinished Business, a case missing from the Janus Project Files. Now, that's available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a whole host of other places. Simply type it into a Google search bar, and you're going to be greeted with them all. But while you're at it, people understand, Brad Anderson is a name that you need to become familiar with because this man has put in some work. Not only is this amazing book on the docket for today's discussion, but he's written 10 other books that you're going to want to pick up. And if that wasn't enough, yeah, Brad's got another one that's still in creation. It's not available for purchase just yet, but be on the lookout for it because it's going to be very, very soon. And I promise you, it's just as impressive as all of his other novels. We're only going to scratch the surface here today, but by the time we've concluded, you're going to run to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and you're going to purchase your copies, not only of this one, but of all the other novels that he has in store as well. Before we go any further, I want to take this opportunity and point out the fact that Brad was brought to our network, People of Distinction today, by one of the best publishing firms in the business. People you already know. I'm talking about Author Reputation Press. So if you're a writer out there, you've gone through your process creating your masterpiece, and now you're going to need some assistance moving the book you just developed. Contact ARP. Because this is exactly what they specialize in. You're going to want to head on over to authorreputationpress.com to gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And people, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Brad here on the line. Strap in and get ready for the roller coaster that you're going to embark upon because this is one that's going to keep you at the edge of your seat. All right. It's a nonstop page turner and you're not going to put it down. Now, Brad is the expert, man. It's his book. He's written it. He's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. But remember what I told you, and remember you got your seatbelts buckled. All right, here we go. Brad, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today, sir?
All right, and thank you for having me on, Benji. I appreciate it, and I think I'm going to go run out and buy my book right now. That's an introduction.
You know, Brad, you should do just that, man. I heard it's a great one, all right? I heard it's a great one. Now, listen, joking aside, Brad, it really is a pleasure, man. I really do mean this. What you've comprised, not only with this book, but your entire work of literature that you've created is something that's beyond impressive. And you know that, Brad, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because it's something that it's just remarkably impressive, man. We're thoroughly looking forward to this discussion. Before we go into the pages of the book and figure out more about this novel, start by giving us a little bit more information on yourself and your background, please.
I grew up in a small town near Houston, a town in West Columbia, Texas. Did some traveling. My dad was in petrochemical industry, so we traveled a little bit, different countries and different states. Went to high school, graduated, went to West Point, went to flight school, and served a few years in the Army, and I got out. And right now I'm in kind of my dream job. I'm working at Randolph Air Force Base near San Antonio. It's a great job, and I've been at it for 28 years. I'm a data manager.
Wow.
That's pretty much me.
Yeah, well, there you go. You know, Brad, I wasn't planning on going here right off the bat, but after that introduction, I can't see myself going anywhere else, man. Listen, your background, first and foremost, thank you very much for your service. Never seems like a thank you is good enough. It's all I have to offer at the time, so I'm going to give that to you, Brad. Thank you very much. Additionally...
Oh, thank you.
I have to ask, though, you need to connect the dots for me here, man. Your background in the military, in the Air Force, you know, you're working now within the same kind of environment Well, where does creative writing fit into all this, Brad?
Gosh. I used to do a lot of reading when I was growing up. And then I guess what started it all off for me. Well, okay, so John D. MacDonald and Alice MacLean are two of my favorites.
Oh, okay.
And for, mystery and adventure and things like that, I got Lily Moore, just pretty good background and of reading fiction and everything. And then the whole concept of this Janus Project, which was my first story that I wrote, was not the first one published, but the first one I wrote, was inspired pretty much, it was in the 80s. And you had the Terminator, you had Time Cop, there was an Australian sci-fi show, Time Tracks. So all that stuff was going on in my head. And I was home on leave one time, and there was this road that I swear, when I was growing up, was covered with oyster shells. And this time when I went on leave, it was paved. And all those things all clicked together, and the Janus Project was pretty much born from there. And tons of rewrites over the years and everything until I finally got that published. And then, it was only supposed to be one book. And it's blossomed into 6. And I'm working on the 7th one, so,
I love that. And listen, once that passion hits you, man, there's no telling where it's going to take you.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the thing is, you get an idea in your head, and you have to follow it.
Yeah.
So, it's just one of those things.
Well, listen, without further ado, let's jump into this magnificent book here, Unfinished Business. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Let's start with the basics. The Janus Project is time travel plus witness protection. And the premise of all that is it's very difficult to hide people now in the witness protection program because we're wired into everything. So the best place you can hide somebody is in the past. And that's the premise of the Janus Project itself.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, the witness is Dyan Strother, and she was involved with an illegal human organ harvesting network, and there was some other crime being involved too. And so she decided to turn herself in and turn over all this evidence and to go into witness protection so she could change her identity, because that was one of her goals, was to get a new identity. And that happened 3 books ago. So this is the culmination of her story, and we're putting her in 2015 in Ogallala, Nebraska. And but part of what she wants is more than just a new identity. She wants to solve the murder of a friend that was done about 8 years ago. And so she talks Rob Mackie, who is the marshal who is going to be her protector, into she'll be nice and she'll behave if he'll let her help him solve this mystery of who killed her friend.
Mm-hmm.
So it's off to Ogallala, and we run into all sorts of different people that we weren't expecting to come across. And I guess that's pretty much it. We can get into the other details as far as the cast of characters, but that's pretty much the basics of the story.
My follow-up that I want to go into is because, listen, as I mentioned in my intro, man, this book is layered. And it is nuanced, like you mentioned already. Time travel being one of the concepts that are explored within this narrative, but we know that there's a lot more. Talk to us, walk us through this process, because as an artist myself, I can understand. Like, so my background is in filmmaking, right? And I get it. Like, once you're working on a project and you have one particular idea and that momentum starts to build, and all of a sudden you get another one and then another one and another one. And these things just start to compound. And that initial inspiration that started off as just a single snowflake has accumulated into this massive snowball with all of these different layers. Talk to us about all of the different aspects to it with regards to it. Like I said, time travel, the murder mystery, the hidden treasure part of it. Where did all of these concepts start to enter in? And honestly, man, how did you make it all work together?
Well, this is Dyan's story. She's the one who's telling it to me, and I had to write it down. That's pretty much it. But Dyan did want her story to be told now. Mm-hmm. And it was about the right time to tell her story. Dyan is a vampire. And the only clue that she gives of her age is that copper was their metal at the time she was alive, before she was turned into a vampire. So that puts her pretty old. So she was looking at the Marshal Service as a way to change her identity, as I mentioned before, without having to do all the work herself. She would let somebody else do it for a change because she's had to do it so many times over the centuries. So she knows that her friend was filthy rich. Rob kind of makes that assumption after he goes to Ogallala to kind of scope things out. So she admits that, yeah, there's a treasure. So that's going to be part of it too. She's like, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll be extra good if you'll help me find the treasure. So what starts off is just, trying to find a place to hide in Ogallala and also to solve the mystery of how her friend was killed. They run into the people who are kind of involved in his murder. And they also come across a couple other vampires. And it turns out that her friend was a vampire, and there were this group of orphan vampires. They no longer have a sire. The sires died a long time ago. So they have a reunion about every 10 years. And it was time for her friend to host this reunion. And so when he didn't send out the invitations to the other vampires that, it's going to be this date, these two who are involved with setting up such things show up at the time that some other events are happening. So that's when we start finding out that, there's a whole bunch of vampires going to be here pretty soon looking for the treasure, because now they know that he's dead and that the treasure is available. So you have that. And then the crime that's going on where her friend got killed is a money laundering operation that's run out of the store called Metals and Stones. So the money laundering is happening there. What happens is the bad guys are committing the crimes elsewhere, and then they bring the proceeds in to Metals and Stones to launder the money. So they don't have to worry about keeping anything on hand or having to worry about running away with it should the cops get too close or anything like that. They just come over, launder the money, and they got clean money, and they can go about the business of whatever crime it is. Mm-hmm. And reason why I picked Ogallala is because, like Rob Mackie says, I was looking at a map, and you have an interstate that runs through there, Interstate 80, and then it branches off, and it goes goes into Colorado. The other goes up through Wyoming, and then eventually you end up on the coast. You have a lake right there, and you also have the Union Pacific that runs just south of town as well. So you have all these avenues of getting in and out in a hurry if you want to, and there are a couple of regional airports nearby too. Mm. So it looked to me like, well, if I'm going to commit crime and everything, this would be the perfect place to launder my money. I can get in and get out and not have to worry too much about getting trapped because there are all these ways to get in and out. So that's how that came to be. And then, in the writing process, and just in the normal creation of things, you don't really know what's going to happen until you write it. And like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. And so part of the unfinished business in the title was so we have to catch the bad guys and everything. Well, Rob Mackie has a past with the DEA. He was undercover with them for several years, and someone ratted on him and his car was rigged to explode. And fortunately for him, a vagrant tried to steal his car. So it blew up on that person. And Rob Mackie is like, oh, this is an opportunity. So he throws in his keys, his watch, and everything else, and he takes off. And then he spends the next 10 years trying to figure out who it was who murdered him. So he comes in with this background of bad guys that he has worked with undercover. And one of those guys turns up in Ogallala. And so there's different dynamics of different interactions with people throughout the whole story. And it all goes, everything works toward finding out what are the crimes going on and who did the killing, and also finding the treasure.
People, again, the book is called Unfinished Business, a case missing from the Janus Project Files by Brad Anderson. While you're at it, look into the 10 other titles that he has already available. And check back in frequently because, like we said, there's another one still in creation. So this Janus Project Files, it's not over because the next one that's upcoming, yeah, it's part of this series as well. You know, Brad, as we start to close out of here, man, my last couple of questions here, we're going to dive in our imaginations a little bit. So just follow me down this rabbit hole here.
Okay.
Pertaining to your book, Unfinished Business, man, it is a journey like no other. Well, Brad, if you had the opportunity to take this book and bring it to life, and you could actually enter that world and experience one of the pages fully, which page or section would you choose to land on and why?
Oh, my gosh. That's a tough one. Because, I mean, we're talking about my own work here. So I would have to say, okay, so there's this guy, Tony Rizzo, and he has become a substitute for Dyan's friend. And because that's what the bad guys did. Her friend refused to join up with them and be part of the gang. So they killed him and brought in somebody to take his place. So he has he's been forced into doing some other bad things like counterfeit money. And he's working on his escape plan to get out from under everything. And while he's putting the finishing touches to his escape plan, he discovers that where he's been working on his counterfeit money, that there are all these bodies buried in the walls of the old root cellar where he's been printing the money.
I'm telling you, like I mentioned at the beginning, Brad Anderson is a name to be remembered. It's a name to be reckoned with. It starts with Amazon and Barnes & Noble and purchasing copies of this book. Head on over there, pick up your copies, and get lost in all of it. Brad, this has been a true pleasure, man. I just want to take this opportunity and thank you again for being a guest with us on People of Distinction.
Well, thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed it.